Hi there, it's Sandra from the Schwovin's Nest. Thanks for joining me today. Welcome to another episode of Timber Tuesday. I've got three projects for you today, and the first one is using this dollar store frame. It's a pretty good size. I love the shape of it, but I'm not too keen on what's on it. I bought it mostly for the size and shape of the frame. It is a wood frame, and I'm going to just keep it all intact except for those cute little flowers. At first, I thought I was going to pull off the back and replace it, but then I decided it's nice and sturdy. You can see here that I am using some of my Starbond glue. It is the medium consistency, and I'm also now going to spray with the accelerator. So what happened is I tried to pull it off and then just tore it, ripped it to shreds. So I'm just going to go ahead and fix it up with these two products. Absolutely amazing products. If you're interested in checking out the Starbond, I've got a link down in my description box and also for 10% off. Well, this is a DIY channel, so of course I'm not going to leave this frame the way it is. I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple of coats of my DIY chalk paint. I'm going to cut down this little cutting board. It's a bamboo one, and you can find these at the Dollar Tree, but this is a thrift store find. Another sweet thrift store find were these blocks. These are like a tumbling tower game, but they're a little different. They have some print on them, which is instructions. I don't remember the name of the game because I threw out the box and just tossed these into a bin. But what I'm going to do is just give this frame a little bit of a wood accent down at the bottom, and I'm just going to glue these on with some hot glue. I'm going to use some hot glue to put on the little cutting board and create a shelf on this sign. I thought that was a really cute idea and something that I really haven't seen too much of. So I'm going to go ahead and use the hot glue, and then I've got my staple gun there. I'm going to add some staples to the wood blocks and the shelf from the back of the sign. Some of the staples kind of showed through a little bit on the top, so I'm going to use this tiny little square dowel and glue that in place just to camouflage it. Then I'll do the same thing on the bottom just to make it look more put together. I'm going to make this into a home sign, so I'm going to hot glue these wood letters that I got from a local craft supply store, and I'll have their link down in the description box. And then I'm going to make a cute little green wreath for the O. I've got to put some type of hanger on for the little wreath. I want this to be removable so whoever purchases it can change out the wreath for the seasons. I'm using these little jot push pins from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to push it through. I ended up having to use a little bit more pressure, so I used a tiny little nail, hammered that through, and then got it all the way to the back. I'm using this piece of garland which doesn't have any wire in it but is very flexible. I'm just trimming off those little pieces I don't need, and then I'll glue it together to make a wreath form. As you can see here, I'm just trimming off the little ends of the branches because I don't need those. That's the part that sticks into the stem. Then I'm going to just use hot glue, and I'm going to start gluing them around the little wreath form in one direction. I'm going to do one layer and then I'll fill it out and keep adding it until I get the fullness I want. If you are new to my channel, welcome, and a great big welcome and thank you to all of my current subscribers who watch my videos faithfully. I love you guys. I'm going to add three of the little push pins to the bottom portion of the sign. That way someone can use it for keys or just to hang some decorative items. It'll be a useful project. Down in the right-hand corner, you can see my little mini wreath. I probably used about 25 of those little sprigs. Now I'm going to take a little chip brush and distress with some black. It's just a dry brushing technique. I'm going to go all along this way first, and then I'm going to do some extra along the edges. I like to give the edges of the frames some more distressing, so I'm just kind of taking my brush and flicking it right along the edge so it has more of an outline and you can really see the edges of the frame. I found the letters to be still just a little bit light, even though I wanted to leave them the natural color. So I'm taking some of this black paint and going around the edges like I did the frame. I don't have this portion videoed, but I decided to take a really light stain just with some brown paint and water and give the letters a little bit of a darker look. And then I added a little bit more of the black around the edges. And I think that just made them pop a little bit more. My next project is using this dollar store plant bucket. It's plastic, but it's got some wonderful texture to it. I'm going to remove the chains because I'm not going to need those. I'm using one of the Dollar Tree wood cutout rounds for the base, and I've laid out the tumbling tower blocks. These are from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to glue them down all the way around. Then I'm going to layer, but I'm going to do a staggered layer. So the next one will be sort of what's called a brick lay. I'm going to put the next layer on top of the joints instead of directly on top of each other. I took the basket and I gave it some heavy dry brushing just with white chalk paint, and look at how those beautiful details just pop. At this stage of the crafting, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to put inside of this basket, so I decided to paint the inside white so it would match the outside. I'm making my own antique wax using some Mod Podge and a dark brown chalk paint. I'm starting out with just a little bit of the brown paint, and then I'm going to test it on one of the tumbling tower pieces because this is what I'm going to use to stain my planter bottom. I added some stain to the block and then wiped it off, but the color was still a little too light, so I decided to add a little bit more brown. I applied my wax concoction to the bottom first just to make sure it was the right color, and I'm using a brush to apply it, and I'm going to use a baby wipe just to wipe off any excess. This color is perfect, so I'm going to continue working on this, just putting it on with the paint and wiping it off with a baby wipe. I wasn't very happy with the white against the dark stain, so I decided to do something a little different and take some of the Martha Stewart chalk paint in the color clay and just do a dry brush with that right on top of the white. I think this turned out a lot better. To get the planter attached to the stand, I needed to do something in the center. So I'm adding some of the tumbling tower blocks to raise it up a little bit more. I also had to use a piece of painter stick, and then I just hot glued everything together. I decided to add just some greens into this pot. I thought it would look really pretty that way. I also think it would look absolutely beautiful on a front porch with some real greenery in it, maybe a couple of flowers, and you could just set another pot right inside of it. But for now, I'm just going to create my own little greenery arrangement. I like to use pool noodles for my foam because floral foam is pretty expensive and it makes a mess. And I just found that these pool noodles don't make any extra mess at all, and you can cut them down really easily to fit where you need them to be. I'm adding some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss and I'm just kind of sprinkling it in. No need to hot glue everything together. This will stay there, especially once I start adding the greenery picks. I'm going to add different sizes and styles of greenery picks, and I'm just going to keep adding until I like the look of it. My last wood project is using this tray that I made last year. I added some of these metal handles and they've been rusted to death because they've been sitting outside, but that patina is awesome. So I'm probably going to save them for another project. I'm going to remove them from this and then I'm going to clean it up really good and give it a coat of white chalk paint. I'm using one of these little wooden crates. This one I picked up at Michael's. They're $1.49 here in Canada, and that's the regular price. My Dollar Tree never carries these. I cannot find them for the life of me. Our Dollar Trees here in Canada, especially in my city, I don't know how they are in other cities, but they don't carry a lot of Crafter Square items. So I'm always on the lookout for other things that are of similar price. So I'm using the same brown wax, the one I just created earlier with the Mod Podge and the brown chalk paint. And I'm going to do the same thing. Apply it with my brush and then wipe it off with a baby wipe. I'm going to give this a bit of a dry brushing with the white just to make it look a little bit more weathered and more into the farmhouse style. Using a really rough chippy brush and some of the brown wax, I'm going to distress the boards as well. I'm using my Weld Bond glue on the side of the little crate, and I'm also going to add some hot glue in the center so it can just hold that crate in place while my Weld Bond glue dries. I'm going to place the crate off center. I want it sort of off to the side because I'm going to end up adding some florals and greenery to it, but there's something else I want to put on the other side. I'm going to make this into an address sign for my front porch. So I'm just using my pencil and I'm freehanding the number 62, which is our house number. I'm using a small brush and some black paint, and I'm just going to fill in my numbers. When I'm painting, I always make sure that I use the size of brush for my project. I started out with a larger brush, but then decided that this smaller one would do the trick just as well, and I'd be able to get all of those lines really nice and straight. I'm putting this stencil from Martha Stewart on the bottom board underneath the numbers, and I thought it would just give a nice little detail and make it look a little bit more high end, maybe a little bit more modern farmhouse. I'm not sure what you would call it, but I really love this stencil. I'm adding another piece of pool noodle to the bottom of the crate. Then I'm going to add a little bit more of the reindeer moss, some lavender, and some lamb's ear. Before I hang this outside, I'm definitely going to be spraying it with a couple of coats of some clear matte finish. The last thing to do is to add a hanger, and I've decided to use one of the chains from the basket. And I'm using these eye hooks, and a little trick to get these eye hooks started is to actually just take a hammer and hammer them in a little bit, and they go in so nicely, and then you can just start screwing them. Once it gets a little tough to screw it down, grab your needle nose pliers and that will help you just finish screwing it in. I'm just clipping on the chain and I'm all set to hang this on my front porch. I love it. I really hope you enjoyed my Timber Tuesday projects today. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. That tells YouTube you like my channel, you like my content, and they promote me more, which helps my channel grow. If you're new to my channel and you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and stick around a while. That black arrow will show you exactly where to click. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. See you in the next one.